Okay, so I wanted to have a little chat today about how you're going to be able to really achieve your goals a lot more fast, and mostly what I really want to talk about with you is how to actually feel aligned towards your goals, right? And so there's a whole lot of talk always about motivation in the YouTube world and stuff like that, and self-development and all that bullshit, right? But the thing is that on the one hand, you don't want to rely on motivation as a feeling, right? You don't want to rely on feelings in general because they come and go, which is very true. But in general, in a macro perspective, you do want to have a sense of urgency about your goals. You do want to have a sense of drive, right? Sense of commitment, etc., towards your goals. And that can either come or go, right? Yeah, it's fleeting as far as the moment goes, right? So you need discipline to handle that. But as far as a macro perspective of you staying aligned and really following your purpose, you need fucking reasons to do so. And with reasons, I simply mean that you basically associate pleasure to you doing that goal, right? And the achievement of that goal and everything that comes with that, right? Because a lot of people, they might be motivated, they might have leverage to a certain level to go after their goal or whatever it may be, a high level of performance, whether that's in sports, business, arts, whatever the fuck it is that you do, right? But a lot of people might have a level of drive to it, right? But that level of drive can also be basically eliminated when you adopt certain beliefs or when you lose certain beliefs. So I'll give you an example. If you have a certain goal in business right now, right, and you're wanting to get to that level and that's your goal, but you don't actually feel certain subconsciously that you can really achieve that, then obviously that's going to defeat a lot of your motivation simply because your brain is going to go, your subconscious mind, or your reptile brain that you don't really have control over is going to go, or don't have direct control over rather, is going to go, well, listen, why would I give this guy motivation for him to like expand all this resources like energy, right? Because our brains are wired to conserve energy. And so then your brain is going to make you feel lazy, right? Because it knows subconsciously, once again, that you're not actually going to get a result for all that work that you're putting in right now, right? And therefore, it's not allowing you to expand those resources, expand that energy, because there's nothing that's actually going to come back, right? And how that works is when you were, in a caveman tribe, right? Many, many years ago, I'm talking about millions of years, right? Your brain was wired to always conserve energy. Why? Because there were very limited resources, right? Now that brain, with millions of years of programming, you still have, which is called your reptile brain, your subconscious mind, whatever, right? Because for only a couple thousand years, you have your neocortex, which is really your thinking mind, etc. And that's where you make those decisions. That's where you have your higher level ambitions and thinking. And that's the part of your brain that might want to make you successful, but and expand energy and go to the gym or whatever. But the subconscious mind, which is actually like 95% of your brain power, does not want to do that unless it's going to get a very big reward. So it doesn't want to go walk to the fridge in a micro perspective if there's no fucking food in there, okay? And so that brain inherently is lazy, and that's what a lot of people don't understand. Like, you are, as a human, inherently lazy. It is simply the beliefs and values you hold in your conscious mind that override the programming of being lazy, because you believe and create a perception that not being lazy will get you a reward worthy of expending that amount of energy. But if you have some sort of a misconception, or you believe something or don't believe something enough, then obviously that doesn't go the way that we just said it would go, right? And so now you're actually going to have laziness. You're not going to actually go after your goal. So look, we can talk all fucking day, right? About, okay, make a fucking to-do list, right? Do your monk mode, put your phone away, shit like that, right? Which is actually bugging me on my leg right here. And so that's all great, right? But that's all very behavioral level shit. And it's not really going to get to the cause, going to get to the root of why you're even needing to do all those little tricks to be able to be productive. Look, obviously it is going to make you feel more productive if you're getting up early, right? If you're not touching your phone, shit like that. But I can tell you this, I've had times in my life where I was doing everything wrong. I was on my phone, consistently or a lot. I was distracted. I had people around me, whatever, right? But I was super productive. I was super focused because, once again, the macro perspective, the macro leverage and motivation I had overrode, however the hell you say that, guys, all of those limiting behaviors, right? And so I was still able to be focused, even though I didn't have all my ducks in a row as far as the behavioral stuff, those little tricks that make you extra productive, right? But I've also had times where I, was really doing everything right? Getting up early, not touching my phone, right? Like being in a focused environment, being in an office, whatever. Doing everything right, but wasn't actually that productive because the macro perspective wasn't set up correctly in my mind, right? Meaning that I didn't have the certainty that I was going to be able to get the outcome that I actually wanted to get from all of this work, right? And so at that point in time, you feel like, yes, I need all of these productivity hacks and tricks, but you're not actually really looking at yourself in the mirror and dealing with the thing that's at play in reality, right? In your subconscious mind. And so how we do that on a practical level is, once again, first of all, asking yourself, what is actually your goal, right? And I assume that if you're watching this video, you most likely do have a goal, right? But like generic people, they actually don't. But I'm going to assume that you do. So you have a goal. Now ask yourself, how high is your certainty that you can actually achieve it? And if your answer to that is not close to 100%, then there's work to do, right? And even if it's like 95, that's great, but there's still things you could do to increase that percentage more, right? And so there's a couple ways that I'll just riff off that I've seen very, very workable to be able to make that happen. Which is number one, kind of a fake it till you make it attitude, right? Where you just step into the belief like you are 100% certain. And that is honestly a base foundation, because that way you don't need any external stuff to help you get that belief, right? So that is number one. Number two would be to actually find examples of people who have done the same, right? This will give you a boatload of certainty, right? Find people that have done the exact same shit and that are, the greatest thing is if you can find people who were in the same situation or in a worse situation than you are now, right? So basically, these people had less advantage than you do now, and they still made it happen. That'll give you a lot of certainty, right? Because obviously it's just a math equation. Well, these people started here, I start here, and they got here, and I'm not here yet, but that means that I can also do it, right? So that is a very great way to do that. And then thirdly, one other thing that you can do is it's the same principle as the second thing. Look at your own track record, your own history of success, right? Of like, hey, what achievements have I done in the past that I didn't think were possible before that, right? What have I really achieved, right? And it can be very small, right? From fucking making your bed till cooking up a meal till winning first prize in a running competition, right? On a side note, I don't know why everybody's doing fucking running competitions these days, okay? I just don't see the benefit in it. I run personally, but it's for my boxing stamina, right? Because boxing teaches you how to fight, going to the gym gives you muscles. I get those things, but running, I really don't get it, okay? Anyhow, that's a side point. So really look at like your past track record of success, and what you can do there, another practical level there, deepening that out, is write some of those achievements down and look at it every day. I call that your circle of excellence, right? And so basically, if you're looking at your circle of excellence and expanding that each day, then your brain is just going to you're making your brain consciously focus more on your excellence, and that is in retrospect going to really produce more of that excellence, because you're wiring your brain every time you look at that. Okay, if you what you focus on, you get, right? And that is such a over talked about principle, and it's kind of cliche at this point, but it's still very fucking true. And most things that are cliche are usually misinterpreted by the general public, but as true as they actually could be, right? So an example of that is like, whenever a person asks, a guy asks, like, oh, how do I get a girlfriend? And people always say like, oh, just be cool, just be yourself, right? And the person is just like, well, what the fuck does that mean? Actually, it's probably the best advice in the world, right? But for most people, they're going to interpret that as like, okay, just be myself. Well, just be my insecure little self that doesn't know how to talk to people and all of that stuff, right? So that is not actually yourself. That is your conditioned insecure self. That's not your real self, right? And so that is where the misconception would come in, right? And that's with a lot of these cliche terms. It's actually very true, but most people misinterpret it because there's no context, there's no nuance to the fucking statement, obviously, right? So that's why I'm here for you. Anyhow, so listen, if you do that, then obviously you're going to increase the belief that you can do it, that you will get a reward out of what you're doing. However, there's a second part to the equation to get macro leverage and motivation in your life and in your goals, which is the fact that that reward right? You can be very certain that you're gonna get that reward, but the reward do gotta be fucking sweet for you, right? If you don't like chocolate cake and there's a chocolate cake at the end of the line and you're very certain you're gonna get that chocolate cake, that's great. But if you don't like it, it's not gonna fucking help, is it? Right? I personally love chocolate cake, right? But a lot of people like strawberry cake or any of that fucking carrot cake, that shit, vegetarian bullshit you got nowadays. Listen, think about what you're doing. Are you really doing this for you? Or are you doing this for someone else? Are you doing this for your parents? Are you doing this for validation? Why are you doing what you're doing, right? Really sit with that for a minute, because it might be very hard for you to basically admit that you're doing the wrong thing, because your brain is going to go, no, I can't say that, or I can't admit that to myself even, because now I have all of this wasted effort, or now I have to jump ship, and that might be very fucking difficult, but necessary, because otherwise you're going to have a lifelong time of unhappiness. Okay, I'll give you an example, honestly, just giving you a real example from myself. When I started boxing again, okay, I basically did kickboxing from age 14 to about 16. And I was just getting ready for my first competition. And right before that, we were just sparring, right? And I was doing really, really good. Like, I was extremely talented because and just knowing that, because I sparred with guys that fight now in glory, 2 guys that fight now in glory, and some of them back then even like had very big shows already. And I was holding my own very, very well. And I was like 14, I just started, right? So either way, and my trainer, obviously, feedback got to him. Regardless, so I got knocked out when I was 16 before I wanted to do my first fight. You have to be above 16, right? Or at the time you had to be above 16 to do a fight. So I got my ass knocked out by this dude, and honestly it was just like a kind of an accident. He threw like a spinning heel kick and I just got slammed to the ground. I was like out for like 30 minutes, and you know, I'd never had any issues, never knocked out or whatever, but that was like really tough. And then honestly, I had a headache for years. Okay, I'm talking about like 5 years, 6 years, 7 years long. And then up until 2 to 3 years ago, you know, I kind of fixed that, etc. Doing alternative shit, like no doctors could help me, whatever, right? So I kind of lost that purpose in my life back at the time, because I didn't tell you this, but when I was 14, 15, basically my goal in life was to become a professional, like kickboxer or fighter, whatever, right? I really loved it so much. I was in there hours and hours a day, okay? And it got taken away from me by this injury, because I couldn't even run, right, without getting a headache. It was just very problematic. So anyhow, then maybe 9 months ago-ish, my friends were in Bali, I was in Bali, and they got into boxing, whatever. So right, at some point I'm like, you know, I'll just join you guys, you know, once. And, you know, I didn't have the headache issue, really, right, when I was boxing as much. And, you know, obviously I didn't have it before that, but that was not doing an activity, right? Now I didn't have it with doing the activity. And in the first instance, this is how this whole story ties back for you. In first instance, I actually really thought in the back of my mind, like, you know, try to rationalize that, you know, I know I still cannot do boxing, right? I still cannot do kickboxing, whatever, right? I was trying to say that to myself because there was so much pain associated to me going back in there. Why? Because I would have to confront the fact that I just lost, you know, from like 14, 16 to 24, which I am now, 8 years or so, 8 years-ish of progress. I just lost that, right? Because basically, like, I just thought that I couldn't do it, right? And obviously for the first year, like, I really seriously couldn't do it, but who knows, maybe after that, a couple years later, I could do it. I don't know, right? I didn't test it, but I got into business after that. So anyways, there was so much pain associated for me to getting back in there, because I had to then acknowledge the fact that, I kind of like missed out on 8 years of progress in my life's purpose, right? So it was just very difficult, right? And so honestly, I got over that by just being honest with myself and just having, you know, basically practicing acceptance, right? In the sense that, you know, hey, listen, whatever happened, and I can't change that, and everything that happened to me during my life has happened for the better, right? And I just choose to believe that, okay? Because if you don't believe that, then you might go crazy. But also, it's a very workable belief, okay? Because what the fuck else are you going to do with the past, right? Just accept it and just understand that, hey, everything happened for a reason, everything happened for... And look, on the other hand, the reason that I got into business, one of the big reasons, was also because I was obviously not on the path of becoming a professional fighter. And so therefore I got into business and, obviously have done quite well relatively to whatever, just for me, right? And so that is also something that I got out of it, right? So anyways, my whole point here, right, is that was a bit of a segue into you making choices from a clean slate. You making choices right now of what you're going to do in your life, right? Of what your actual goal is, what you really, really want. From a place of acceptance in the sense that I could do anything and everything and it would be totally okay. Like when I was thinking, I want to become a fucking professional fighter, I had this resistance. No, I can't do that, right? And I was always thinking about, what do I really want to do? What do I really want to do, right? And I was thinking about all these things, but that one option way in the back of my mind, I just disregarded it because I figured like, oh no, right? Because I've already missed so much time in progress. So anyways, of, becoming a better fighter during those 8 years. So anyways, enough about me there, but really look at it from a clean slate. Allow any and every opportunity in, right? When you're thinking of this in your creative process. And then secondly, you're going to have to really think, when you come up with that answer, okay, that is like your grander kind of vision for your life, right? And then from there on, you're going to really look at like, hey, what are the current goals, okay? And let's think about it a bit more simply. Like, let's say that you're in business, right? And you have certain goals, etc. Well, then you're going to ask yourself, because it might be more simple for you. You might already be, quite sure about like, hey, I want to do business, I want to make money right now, or whatever. That's like a lot of people on this channel, right? And so at that point, you also got to ask yourself, like, more within a certain niche that's already been chosen, the goal that you currently have within that niche, right? So maybe going from 10K a month to like 100 grand a month. What beliefs do you have about who you need to be to get there or what you need to do to get there? And that will tell you if you have any pain associated to that next level of goal. Because I'm telling you this, like, the real reason that you're not at that level yet, that you're not at that goal yet, is because you subconsciously and or consciously associate more pain to it than pleasure. Meaning that either you don't feel that you're worthy of that, or you feel that you're going to be more alone when you're there, or you feel like you're going to be stressed out and working too much when you're there, whatever, right? There's some negative association you have to that. And the only way to bring that up is to just ask yourself good questions, right? So that's what we're doing here right now. And so looking at that point, okay, that you want to go to, ask yourself those questions. Who do I need to be? What do I need to do to get there? And when I'm there, right? What is it going to be like? And then what you're going to find is, let's riff off some examples, right? Maybe you think that getting to 100 grand a month will require you to work 10 times as hard and you simply don't want to do that because you still want to spend time with your family, because a high value of yours is love and family, right? You always want to be aware of your highest values in life, right? Like love, like freedom. Freedom is a great one too. Maybe you think that, getting to 100 grand a month is going to kill your freedom, right? Because now you need an office with employees and now you think you're not going to have freedom. You're never going to fucking achieve the 100 grand a month if you subconsciously think that. That's why this is so important to reflect on, right? And be aligned to your goal. Because otherwise, some part of yourself is going to be fighting you and subconsciously driving up lazy thoughts to be able to prevent you from getting to that goal, because it doesn't want to feel alone. It doesn't want to lose out on freedom, or it doesn't want to lose out on love, whatever the fuck it is, okay? And this is not some corny ass bullshit. This is like just high performance shit where you're going to be able to actually make more money, okay? Get better relationships, like get a global network, whatever it is that you're kicking on right now. It is important, highly important, that you understand what part of you does not want that, okay? So list out like, hey, what are the most important things to me in life, right? That's going to give you your values, like, hey, freedom, love, as I just said, etc., right? Power, status, whatever it is for you, okay? And then from there on, you're going to really analyze those a little bit more deeply as to how it relates to your goal, okay? So you're going to think about your goal, your point B, currently, getting to 100 grand a month, okay? Currently, I have these values. Here's how I experience them in my life. If I were to do all of these things and be this person who I would need to be to get there, what level would my values still be present in my life in a positive sense, right? And let's say that freedom is a 9 out of 10 here. In your perception, right, might not be reality, but your perception of this, right, here it's a 9 out of 10, and here you think, your perception once again, that it would be like a 7 out of 10. Well, you can change that. using two methods. Number one, change your perception, right? By simply looking at it from a different perspective, or looking at or thinking about it, thinking it through, asking other people about it, whatever. Number two is simply changing your reality, okay? Those are the only two things you can do. It's very fucking simple. So let's say that with your business, you think that getting to 100 grand a month will like give you tons of more work. Well, then you can do two things: change your perception about work. Well, I actually am gonna like the work, whatever. Actually, I can hire team members. Or you can change your reality, which is indeed, as I just said, the second one. I can hire a team, I can hire staff, so they can actually automate the process. I'm actually gonna be working less. Or you can shift your business model so that, hey, this is not the model, like one-on-one service or whatever, is not the model that I'm gonna apply here at the 100 grand a month level. And so therefore I'm actually gonna be working less and I'm gonna have more freedom. Or you can shift the meaning of work for yourself, which is a perception thing again, right? Like I'm actually gonna like it because I'm gonna be in flow and working a lot and I get a lot of personal growth from working very hard, whatever it may be, okay? There's changes you can make and then you're aligned. So to kind of give you the whole thesis here, number one is knowing what you want. Number two is being very certain that you can get it, that you can get the goal that you're currently after. And number three is, once again, checking in with, is it actually, are there any negative associations that you have to that goal or that thing that you think you want, right? And once you resolve all of those things, you're gonna be highly aligned, highly driven and motivated. You're still gonna have fluctuations in your day-to-day feelings. You're still gonna need fucking discipline. Okay? You're not gonna be one of them self-development pussies that only needs to rely on like, oh, I need to feel great about everything and I need to fucking align my chakras before I can write a fucking social media post. I don't wanna hear none of that bullshit, right? But what I do wanna hear is like, hey, I feel aligned, I'm centered, I know what I want, I know why I want it, and I know that everything that I want is gonna be greater at that point, so I'm driven, right? In a macro perspective, and every day, obviously, sometimes you're just gonna not wanna do it because, right, that is just life, that is emotions, how they work, just like fucking rain and sunshine, right? Without darkness, there's no light, blah, 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 blah. You know the riddle. So do that, okay? And I'll give you one last example. My little brother is a DJ, okay? And he's very motivated, and I can tell, obviously, right? When I speak to him, this and that, like, hey, now he's a bit more motivated, now he's a bit less. And so I'll give you an example. Like years ago, he was like very, very on point, very motivated. He had a certain goal and he knew how to achieve it. And he knew what he wanted it, etc. Now later on, at some point, right, he was a little bit less motivated. I just noticed it. It was very subtle. And it's not like he wasn't working. It was just a little bit less. The fire wasn't on. And then I analyzed it. I asked him questions. And what it turned out to be was that he had an internal conflict about he wanted to be super big, but at the same time, he didn't want to lose his art, right? He didn't want to fucking be a commercial dickhead, right? As far as music and arts go, right? That was important to him. So we found a way to integrate that, changing his perception slightly, but also changing reality, where now he's on a path where he's aligned because he's both aligned as far as his artistic side, but also aligned as far as his global ambition side, right? And then now the motivation unleashes once again. So find what is that version for yourself, and I promise you, it'll be life changing.